What's up Flutter aliens, welcome back to another video of Flutter and Firebase Developer Bootcamps week 4. If you are new here, not forget to check out the full playlist link in the video description. Also, join our WhatsApp community to be updated with the latest announcements at eTechViral. Anyways, today we are going to complete the chat feature by implementing reply functionality, seen messages, online offline status, and also the emoji keyboard. So before going forward with implementing this functionality in the single chat page, there is something that I need to tell you. And you may have noticed we are now not running our WhatsApp clone on the emulator of Android, but we are running it on the iOS simulator. This is because one person in the comment section was asking me there is a null exception. So just because for his clarification, I wanted to run the application on iOS simulator to check out what's the issue. So before running WhatsApp clone on iOS simulator, there is something that you need to consider. The first thing you have to do to run your app on iOS is you have to open the terminal and then you have to change the directory by doing cd to the iOS in your WhatsApp clone project, and then you have to run the pod update to update all the dependencies packages for the iOS. So it will update all the dependencies and will install those dependencies which are not installed, and it generates the pod project and integrating client project, and in the iOS you will see the pod.log file as for the pubspec.log file when we do pubget, so it generates the pubspec.log file, but when you do pod update, so it generates the pod.log file. And then the next thing you have to do is to go to the pod file and uncomment this line platform iOS. So since I have the iOS 17 latest version of simulator, so I just define the 17 in here, but you can define anything your iOS version in which you are going to run your WhatsApp clone in the debug mode. So you have to do these two things and you will be good to go with running your WhatsApp clone on iOS. But if you face one more issue, for example that I faced that I want to tell you now, is in the main.dart you can see there's some change happened. That's why its color is changed, and this need a commit so that it will be updated in the GitHub repository. So you have to go to the main.dart, and when I run the application in the iOS, so it was saying the Firebase core duplicate and the Firebase project for iOS already exists, something like that. So if you have the same case, what you have to do is to copy your project ID, and this will fix this issue also. So that was the steps that you need to follow to run your WhatsApp clone on iOS simulator. And next, now when we go forward for phone authentication in our iOS simulator, so the phone authentication will also not work directly in the iOS. We need to do some configuration also in the Xcode. So let's do, for example, let's put our number in here and pass the dummy OTP, and let's see what exception we face while signing with phone number Firebase in the iOS simulator. So when I do 301414141 and 2 and go for the next, and then I do from 1 to 6 and do the next, and I put the number in here and do next. So it's saying something went wrong and I didn't authenticate to the application. So when I open up the run console and move up here, you can see the phone fell. Please register the custom URL scheme, this URL scheme, in the apps info plist file. So what you have to do is to simply open your iOS in the Xcode, and there is some configuration that you have to do. So once the Xcode opens, you may have remember we have added the permissions in here in the info plist file. So you have to go to the runner and here to the info. It will be default as general. So you have to move to the info tab, and here in the URL types you have to add one URL type, and in the URL scheme you have to paste that URL scheme that here it gave you to add in your custom URL scheme. So once this is added, you have to do nothing, simply close the Xcode and then stop the main.dart and run it again. So after having this configuration in the Xcode for phone authentication, After that, the phone authentication will start working, and this will no more throw the exception something like this that we just fetched few seconds before. So when the application runs successfully again on the iOS simulator, we have to follow the same steps again, agree and continue, and put our phone number, let's say 301-442-4242, and lastly also 2. Go for the next, and the OTP, okay, this time it will open the reCAPTCHA since we have added the URL scheme. And when it's verifying we are not a robot, and this was not the case in Android. Okay, let's put the OTP from 1 to 6 and go for the next and put the name in here, let's say John. Next, and we are signed into the application, and we don't have the conversation yet, and we got an exception here. It is saying the unhandled exception, the service is currently unavailable. This is most likely transient condition and may be corrected by retrying with a backup. So this means that this is an unhandled exception, and like here it's saying the likely a transient condition, which means that it's not a permanent issue, but it's the temporary one and may be caused by the poor internet connection, and this can be corrected by retrying with a backup. Retrying with a backup means this is basically a strategy in software development where we perform a failed operation after some delay. So this is what all that unhandled exception means. So let me hot start this application, and I think this should resolve. So if this is not resolved after hot starting the application, so we will follow another approach to resolve this issue. So after the application hot starts, it's saying unhandled exception. There is one more exception rising in our application, and that is from display screen. If this is unmounted exception, so we can simply set if mounted in here to prevent this. Put the curly braces in here as it's suggesting in here. So add curly braces. Now how to start the application, and now we have no exception, but still we are unable to retrieve the data from the cloud file store. So let's stop the main.dart and run it again, and let's see what happens. So after having some workaround, I finally fixed that issue, and I had to remove the name from here. That is because in the Stack Overflow, first I found you have to fix the issue by specifying the name in here. When I did, it was fixed, and for this person it also worked, but it raised one more issue, the unhandled exception that we have seen some minutes before, why the data was not fetching from the cloud file store. But here I found another answer where I am gonna give him upvote because his answer was really helpful, and he said go to your project directory and remove the Google Services Info plist file by running this, and this is only for the people who have set up Firebase using Flutter Fire CLI. So after that you have to run the Flutter Fire configure and select your project, and then hit enter and select the apps for the project that you want to set up the Firebase for, and then hit enter and keep going for the override steps. And once it completes, simply you have to clean the build of your project, then pubget again, and once this completes, run your application. And he's also saying no hot reloading, which means that hot reloading will not work. You have to stop the main.dart and run it back to make it work. And this answer really helped out many other people also. So once I follow his steps, so I finally got data in my WhatsApp clone. So the bugs and the exceptions are kind of part of the software development. You have to learn to live with them if you want to become a good software developer. And sometimes these issues are very annoying. For example, they just come up one after another. For example, I just fixed one issue of Firebase, and then eventually another comes up. First, there was issue in the iOS duplicate of the Firebase project default already exists, and when I specify the name in here, so another comes up like the data was not loading. There was an issue, the data was not loading. Anyways, let's continue the video further. So now it's time to go and deal with the functionality of the reply. So in the single chat page here, we have to also now this time add the functionality for the replying to other user. So this was the messages that we have sent, and in iOS the video is not loading. And yes, I also want to tell you the limitations of the iOS simulator. For example, the camera and the microphone won't work in the iOS simulator because these are not supported directly in the iOS simulator, but in the emulator that works fine. The emulator use its default camera and the microphones work fine, but in iOS this is not the case. And for this video, why this video is not loading is because we are using the video player for videos, and yes, we must use it. And why I'm saying that we are using the video player is that there is the issue of video player better exception message on iOS devices if the video fails to play. Here, let's see, there is an exception of PlatformException video error, and here it's saying null and the video is not playing. And this issue was open for the video player in the May 8, 2020, and it's been 4 years. It's still open and people keep commenting and it's not resolved yet. And one person here says that the better player, here he's saying, worked for me without any issues for both devices, so I had to switch. So we are currently using the video player, so that's why the videos are not loading. By the way, now you know how to work with video player. So the better player and the Chibi video players are really similar, only a bit of functionality will be different. So if you want to use that, simply you can also use that to play the videos on the iOS. And for the recording will not be played in the iOS, and the microphone won't work in here because these functionalities are not supported in the iOS emulators. And yes, they will work in the real iOS device and also in the emulator. So anyways, now let's continue to work with the reply functionality. For example, when we swipe like this, so we have to show some window, and here we have to show some window above here the message box, and will be designed really like WhatsApp. And then when we send a message, then this message will be sent as reply, and these fields will this time get the data. For example, the common method that we created for sending a message, and for each of the message that we are calling, we are not passing them, but this time this is going to get the data. So now first thing first, we have to go and in the domain layer we have to create one entity for the message. This is not going to be stored in any cloud firestore database, but this is just for separating the fields that we want for a reply when we are about to reply to a specific message. So what we are going to do in here to create a reply entity, we will name it message reply entity. And once its file is created, inside that we are going to have a class of name message reply entity, and it is going to hold the message username and the message type and a boolean field to specify if I am replying to myself. For example, if I'm replying to my own message or the other user message, like that. So this is me is just for that purpose. So once we have the reply entity, we have to go to the qubit and the message qubit. Inside the message qubit, we have to add some getters and setters for that, so that we can simply store the data in here. So since we are providing the message qubit directly on the root, so this will be accessible directly like that. So inside the message qubit, we will first create the message reply direct field inside the message qubit, and then we will create a getter for that and also the setter for that. And this is going to take the message reply, and this start message reply will be set to the message reply that is passed when the set message reply is called. So this will be for setting the message reply. For example, when we swipe like this a message, so we will call this set reply to set the data in here, and then we will retrieve it using the get, or we can also retrieve it by directly accessing the message reply. So these are the fields we are gonna work with the message reply. So after that, we are gonna go to the single chat page, and here on top we have to create a method in here above the build. Here we are gonna have a method, and this method would be a simple void method named onMessageSwipe. For example, it will be called when we do swipe like this. So this is going to take the message, username, type, and the boolean is me, and we'll call the block provider of message qubit, set the reply to the message reply entity and passing this data. And after that, inside the build method, we'll first create a provider of the block provider of context message qubit so that we can access the data from the message qubit easily. And after that, we will create one more variable inside the build method, and this method will be of boolean type and will be equal to provider message reply dot message is not equal to null. For example, to specify if we are replying to other user or not. So based on this condition, we will display the window above here, the text field. So if it's true, we will display, otherwise we won't. And this message will get the data when the onSwipe is called. So now we're gonna go and call the onSwipe method in the onSwipe here. So we will call the onMessageSwipe in here with passing the message.message and the username dot sender name, and the type will be the message type and isme will be true. For example, here this is our message we are returning, where the sender ID will be equal to the sender ID, which means the current user ID upcoming from the widget. And in here we will copy the same thing for the other message and we'll paste it in here, but here we need to keep the isme false. And now when we do swipe, so the message will get the data and this condition will become true. So now we have to take the decision on that, like how the reply preview is going to look like when we swipe one message, and how the functionality is going to work when we are replying and send the message like that. So we're gonna go down here in the, we will Control F and do bottom message, and I think we don't have added the comments, so we will simply do text field, and here it is. And above this we will do check the condition. If the is replying was true, we will add some size box of height 5, otherwise simply size box with 0 height. And then we will check one more condition. If is replying was true, we will return a row where the expanded child would be message reply preview widget, which we are going to create in a while, and will have some container with width 6 so it can move it from here. So it will be really looking attached with this, so it will be looking here above with the field. So now we are going to go and create this reply preview widget. So we got these two widgets in the message widgets. One is message reply preview widget and message reply type widget. So the message reply preview widget will be the preview widget which will show up when we swipe a message directly in here, and the reply type widget will be the widget which is going to be attached with the message layout when we send a reply. For example, when we send a reply message and the reply to and reply type and the fields that exist in the message entity got the data and that was not equal to empty string. So based on that, the message layout here data will be modified, and we're gonna add some UI changes after some while when we are about to send the reply message. So first let's go here, import the message reply widget, and it has a field on cancel reply listener which is simply void callback, and here we are doing the block provider message qubit, and we can directly do provider dot, since we already added it in the build, so set the reply to empty, for example when you click the cancel button. And now it's time to review the reply preview widget. So here what we are doing, simply we have a stateful widget, and this can be stateless because we don't have any data in the stat. So let's convert it into stateless, and now it's stateless, simple void callback. And in the provider and in the build method, we are again accessing the message qubit so that we can deal with the message reply conditions based on that, since we add all the data here, so we can get the reply or directly can access the message reply. and can set the reply. So here in the preview we have a container with the margin horizontal 10 and the height. We are checking if the message type was the text message. So the height of the container will remain 70, otherwise would be 100. And the decoration has the container color be the app bar color, and the border radius will be from top left and from top right. And why from top left and top right is because when we show up a container in here, so its bottom right and bottom left will not be rounded, so it will look really attached to this field like this, and the upper top left and top right will be rounded, so it will look really attached to this field. And later we are also going to change these rounded borders of the field. For example, when we are replying, so these corners will not be rounded directly but will be straight, so we can simply display the reply preview really attached with this field. So that's why we are doing the border radius only from top left and top right. And the container width is infinity, and we already defined the width already in the single chat page, so that it will look only in here and will not go off the constraint and is expanded in the row. And here again margin and decoration. Inside that container we have the black opaque color with the 0.4 opacity, and inside we have a row where I have the container, for example here showing a line when we are replying to other user. So its height is infinity, which means that it will be fully expanded vertically, and its width will be 3.5, and decoration would be if the message reply is me was equal to true. For example, if I was replying to my message, so there the is me will be true, so we will display the tab color, for example the color like this, like greenish color. If I am replying to other user where the is me will be false, so the deep purple color will be selected here as the line in the preview of the reply. And there will be an expanded widget padding horizontally and vertically 5, and the column from start, and here is a row where I have an expanded widget for text reply. Again I am checking if I am replying to myself, so I will not display my name here, but I will simply do you, for example, which means me, current user. And if it was not the case, I was replying to the other user, so I will simply display his name with some styling here. And the color is also decided based on that. If it was me, the tab color, otherwise a deep purple color for the other user. And the gesture detector is that cancel button will be at the end when we are replying, and simply close button. And here after that we are checking if the message type, reply message type was text message, so simply we will display a text, otherwise we will have to display a row. Inside that we're gonna have the message reply widget, which is basically same as message type widget, but while replying there is some difference in that, so that's why I created the different widget for that. And what this widget is taking same the type and the message, and simply checking the condition for the text, it will remain a text with max line 2 and some style. And if it was the photo message, so simply this is the difference. We are displaying the photo with the photo, and simply the profile widget passing the message in here. For video we have some text displayed and the same cached video, and for the GIF also we display the GIF, and same for the audio. It will remain the same. It won't be playable, it's just simple the play icon and the simple width of 190 and height 2 linear indicator, but it won't be playable when we are replying and when we replied to a user. So it will in that reply the preview will not be playable or interactable for the audio, but will be playable and will be interactable when we send a real message in here. And in the else condition we will simply display message like that. So these were the two message similar, same as the other message widgets. And after this done, we have to deal with the field. So we will check for the container of the text field, which here for the top padding I will do if the is replying was true, which means that we are replying to our message or the other user message, so we will display the top padding to 0, otherwise the 5, and we will remove the constant from here. And after that we have to deal with the border radius. It won't be circular for all the sides, but based on condition we will modify that. So we are again checking the condition. If is replying was true, what we have to do is simply display the border radius with only bottom left 25 and bottom right 25, otherwise the full 25 from all sides. So when we're replying, only the bottom left and the bottom right will be rounded, but these top left and top right will not be rounded. And for the reply preview, its bottom right and bottom left was not rounded, so it will look really overlapping with each other and will give us the really reply preview like as we have in the real WhatsApp. So after this has been done, simply how to start the application to test the preview of this, and then we will also modify the send text message here so that we can also send the message reply instead of just sending the text in here. So when the application how to start, simply you have to go to the profile, and down here, let's say I want to reply to, let's say first send a message in here, hello, and now I am replying to myself, and you can see I got the preview like that, which is really like WhatsApp. And this is the black opaque background with the opacity 4. This is that close button that I explained, and since I am replying myself, so there the is me is true, so I got this color, and the U color is the tab color, and the message is directly got like that. I can cancel that reply. I can reply to message like the GIF, and I can reply to a video. I can plan pause it also in here, but since in iOS it's not working because we're using the video player, so let's leave it like that. We can reply to a message, the image like that, and if we are replying to the other user, so you can see this time we will see the different color and his name instead of the U, and which we were seeing here while replying our message. So this is really like WhatsApp. And now we are gonna send the reply message. So for that we need to configure the send text message in here. So what we are gonna do in here, we will check a condition. If the provider message reply that message was not equal to null, and the provider here is that we are again getting the message qubit from the context, and in the send text message we are directly placing that in the provider, same as we had in the build method. And now we are checking if the message was not equal to null, which means that we are replying to someone. So this time we will call the same method with the same fields, but we will only fill the replied message with the provider message reply.message, and the reply to will be the username to whom we are replying. For example, if we replied our message, so here instead of the simply displaying the username, there will come you. For example, I reply to myself, and the replied message type will be the same type, and based on that it will be decided what we have to display when it's replied. Otherwise we will simply send a simple message, and when all that process completes we will set the reply to empty so that this preview will disappear and the text will directly disappear like that. And instead of calling the clear in here, for example, when everything completes, we could directly call in here. So when we send a message, so this will directly clear up everything. So after this has been done, we have to do one more thing lastly, to modify the message layout so that we can see when we reply to a message. So we will wrap this message type widget with a column, and its cross-axis alignment will be at start. And now we are going to add two more parameters in the message layout. That would be the message reply and the right padding. So the right padding would be different when we reply to a message, so we have to specify in the message layout when we are calling it. So now we're gonna go above where we have the list view to do the modification in here. Here in the message layout, we will do right padding. for the sender message bubble, if the message.replied message was equal to empty string, which means that the message layout returning for a specific message where the message replied message was empty string, so we will simply give the right padding as 85, otherwise the 5, and the reply will get the data as replied message type, and reply to, like that. And the same will be for the other user message. Here we can pass it like that. And now based on that, we will check the conditions in the message layout in the column above the message type widget. So what we are going to do in here, we are going to have this code, and this is really simple code. For example, let me collapse this first for a while to have more space in here. And we are simply checking if the reply coming was not equal to null, which means that we have replied to the user, so that the reply upcoming, that message will not equal to null and will not equal to empty string. So this time we will display this container. If it was null or empty string, simply we will display sizebox and nothing else. So we have a simple container where the height is defined like that. If it was message, simply will be 70, otherwise 80, and decoration is the black with opacity 0.2 and border radius is 8 for reply. And here we have again the row. We are simply creating the same preview for the message that will be displayed above the message in here, and the same container with the double infinity width. And then the decoration, we are checking if the username was the recipient name, we will display the purple, otherwise a tab color. So what we are doing in here, if we have replied to some user, and in that reply the username was equal to the recipient name that we are chatting with in that current single chat page, so it means we have replied to the other user. So in that case, the line at the left will get the color of the purple, otherwise tab color, and that's all. And the border radius will be top left 15, bottom left 15. And here again the expanded widget as we had in the reply preview, and then some padding in here, and the column with the cross-axis alignment start, and some text. And the text is also displayed based on the condition. If the username was equal to the recipient name, simply we will display the username, otherwise simple text to you. And some styling, the color is again defined like that. And lastly, returning the message reply widget, passing the message reply message and the reply type this time, and then simple size box above the real message type widget. So after this has been done, we have to hard restart the application and try sending or reply to some message in our WhatsApp clone. So let's hard restart the application and try out sending reply message to someone. So when the application hard restarts, this time you have to go to the conversation, and then for example, let's say I reply to myself, I swipe it like that, it got the data. Let's say I type something in here, I'm replying to myself, hi, and I send the message. So when I send the message, I got the preview displayed in here. I reply to this message and I say hi, but here I have still some space, and that might be because of I have passed the reply right padding in here, but I have not passed it where it need to be passed. So here, when the text message, if it was text message, pass the right padding, otherwise the 5 padding. So this right padding will be decided in here in the message layout where it's called in the list view. So I will Ctrl H since we have not made any larger changes, so you can see it got it like that. Now we can reply to the users and it will get the layout like this. For example, if I am replying to this message and say okay, and I send it, you can see I go to you, give, and they give in here. And let's say I'm replying to the other user, I will do it like that. And let's say I am fine, and I send it. You can see this time I got his name, his message with a different color with my message. And that was it for the reply. Now we're gonna go and deal with displaying the keyboard in here. For example, when I click this, so emoji keyboard will be displayed and I can send the emojis from that. So our reply is completed. Now it's time to go for that, and the next step will be simply seen message and online offline status, and that are really simple tasks will be done very quickly. So to have an emoji keyboard in our WhatsApp clone, we're gonna go up here and we're gonna have some conditions defined and some methods to deal with that. So above all here, we are gonna have these two fields, is show emoji keyboard and a focus node, for deciding if we have to focus the keyboard or not. And then we have the hide emoji container and show emoji container methods, which is simply doing nothing but setting a stat and setting the is show emoji keyboard to false and true. And the show keyboard is doing what? Focus node requesting focus to have focus for this keyboard, and if hide the keyboard is doing unfocus to unfocus the keyboard. And the toggle method is doing what? If the is show emoji keyboard was true and the toggle was called, simply it will show the keyboard and hide the emoji container. Otherwise, it will hide the keyboard and show the emoji container. So basically doing opposite like that, or we can say the toggle emoji keyboard. So now we are gonna go and copy the focus node and we will drag the text field. Inside that we will do focus node as focus node that we have created. And when this field is tapped and the emoji keyboard was opened, simply we will do is show, or what was the field name here. Okay, now we will do text field again, and simply we will set this to false like that. So when the emoji keyboard was true, or whatever its stat is, and if we click that field, so emoji keyboard will disappear and the field will directly appear like that. And then while deleting a message here, when we are deleting, so we will do focus node dot unfocus. So if the field was focused and we were about to delete a message, so we will first unfocus and then call the display alert dialog, the same for the other on long press. And then in the message field we will again drag the text field, and here we have to deal with the prefix icon. So the prefix icon will become like this, will be wrapped with the gesture detector, and in the on tab we will call the toggle emoji keyboard to either show the emoji keyboard or the simple text field, and based on that we will display their icons. And once these condition checks has been completed, we also need to show the emoji keyboard. So down the text field inside the same column we will do this. So let's collapse this to have more area in here. So we are checking if the is show emoji keyboard was true. We have to simply display a size box with height 310, and here we have a stack, and there was not the stack like that, but I really wanted to have the design like WhatsApp, so I just put the stack and here put the emoji picker. So all the keyboard stuff is done by simple this emoji picker, and the config we pass the config with the background color, and when the emoji is selected, what we are doing, simply setting the stat with the text message controller dot text will become equal to text message controller dot text plus emoji. So the text message controller text will get the emoji like that, so it will be displayed in that field. And this align is simple at the bottom center of view, so that we can also have the button to delete the emoji that we don't want to send. So this is just for the UI stuff. We have a container with width double infinity, height 40, will be stuck at the bottom. The background color, the color is app bar color, some padding around the row. The main axis alignment is the space between. We have the search icon, the emoji icon, and this GIF box, and the add units, which is not working for now, and only this is going to be work. The text message will become equal to text message dot substring from 0, and text message dot text -2 just for deleting one emoji. So it's basically not single character but from different characters, so we have to -2 from the length by doing the substring. So by doing that, only one emoji will be deleted when we select from this. So this is going to work like that. But since we are doing managing the emoji, specifying it in the text message controller, and in the field we are displaying the send message button when the text changes here. So if I hold to start the application and expand the area of the iPhone simulator 15 Pro Max and go to the conversation and click this emoji, we got the emoji keyboard and we got move to this, and when we type something you can see this is not changing because it's taking decision on the value of the text field. But in the emoji we are just setting the stat and passing the value to the controller. So we also have to deal with this in here, so that when we type or select an emoji, so this must be converted to text so that we can send the emoji as text also. So simply while setting the stat, we will also specify the data to the text controller like that, and we will copy the same thing and will paste it in the else condition. So anytime when we are modifying the value of the field, so it will be notified, and so we know the text message controller from when the value was changed, so we can check the condition based on the text of the text message controller when we have to display the message sent or the audio like that. So here while sending is display button was true, so in that case we are displaying the set outline. So here we have to check or if the text message controller dot text dot is not empty. So if it was not empty, also you have to display the send outline. And also while sending the message in the send text message, we have to confirm this. So if is send display button was true or the text message controller was not empty, so we have to consider sending either reply or text message, otherwise the audio recording. Now how to start the application, and then we will get back here and try to send an emoji like that. So once the application how to start, simply you have to move to the conversation again and simply let's open up the keyboard. Let's say we send this, you can see it's converted in here, and when you click it back you can see it's converted to the text field. When I clicked the field I can open it back, and you can see I add this area also in this tag. So when I click this close, so the emoji will be deleted like that, and when I select an emoji again you can see it's converting like that. So that is what we wanted. So when I select these emojis and send it, so this will be sent as message like that. So we have done the reply, we have displayed the emoji keyboard, and now we have to deal with seen message and also the online and offline status. So this is not going to require so much code as the two functionalities like the emoji keyboard and the send reply required. So first we are going to implement both of them and then we'll go for testing. So for the seen messages we have to add one more feature inside the chat. So inside the repository we have to go to the chat repository, and here we have to add one more feature. That would be seen message update and will be accepting message. And in the chat remote data source we have to do the same thing, and for the repository we have to override the missing method, and since it's future void we have to do asynchronous and remote data source dot seen message update, put the semicolon, and the chat remote data source we have to implement it. And what this method will be doing in actual implementation is will access to my message reference and other message reference. For example, if I am chatting with other user, so it will basically access to my messages and the my message on the specific ID and the other message on the message ID in his message collection, and for both will update the scene to true. So we will call this message in the list view builder and will update the scene to true while building them in the list view builder. So once this is implemented, we have to create the use case for that in the use cases, and will be scene message update use case. And once it's created, we'll go to the send message and copy the code from here, paste it in here, and change it to scene message use case update use case, and we have to do scene message update, and this is going to only accept the message entity, so we have to remove the chat from here, also remove this import, and we are done with this. Now we have to go to the message qubit, and then we have to duplicate this one. We have to do scene message use case, scene message use case, and also pass it in the constructor required the start scene message use case. And here for send message, we will copy its method, paste it. Right after this, we will do scene message, and we'll remove the chat entity from here, and simply will call the scene message update, remove the chat from here, and we are done in here. Now we have to go to the chat injection container, and we'll call the scene message sl.call, and we will register its use case in here. We'll do scene message update use case, and the same for its implementation while returning it. And once it completes, so we are done with adding new feature in our WhatsApp in our chat feature. So that is how the beauty of the clean architecture. We have not touched anything else, any functionality while adding a new feature. Yes, it requires more hustle, adding the single feature in different places, registering and all of that stuff, but what benefit it provides us, we didn't have to touch any of the business logic for adding a single feature, and yet we got the single feature implemented, and now we have to simply call it in our UI to deal with this. So this is how is the beauty of the clean architecture in an application. So the clean architecture is not about how you organize the UI. You can organize the UI by creating different widgets. Like for example, for the attach window item, you can also create different widgets for separating the UI widgets and keeping them organized in simple different widgets, and you can call them in the pages like that. And for separating the business logic from the UI code, you can use the qubit like that as we have used, or you can use the block or any other state management solution. So this is just UI organization, but the clean architecture is about the main logic and the main business logic, which is here defined in the domain layer. And then both the data layer and the presentation layer are depending upon the domain layer, and adding one single feature is very easy, does not make it a headache, like it does not touch anything at all, and we can easily add a single feature in the clean architecture. So again, this is the beauty of clean architecture. So if you want to become a good software engineer, software developer, so you must know the software architecture and design principles. Otherwise, you will always come up with a headache where you are modifying one thing and the rest will modify itself, since there would be very dependencies, will not have any injections like we have in the single feature. So anyways, let's focus on what we were doing. So we got a single feature, and now in the list view builder we have to deal with it. Here we have the list view, So right after this message, we have to check one condition, and that condition would be if the message that is seen was equal to false while building the list view builder each single item, and the specific message recipient ID was equal to the message.uid, and that message.uid would be the current user ID. So we can simply do in the chat page, first of all, we can create one ID in here, separate ID, which will not be in the model but simply having in the entity. So this dot uid, and also pass it in here, the uid, just for accessing from the entity. So in the chat page, while going to in here, the uid will be the actual user widget.uid, and also in the context page in the home, while going to the user, we have to specify the uid as widget.uid. We can also pass the current uid since we are getting the current user on that specific id, but let's keep it separate like that while having the uid. Now in the single chat page, when the recipient id was equal to the message, which means that now the recipient is seeing the messages, so only in that case we will call from the provider seen message passing the IDs to update the isSeen property of the messages, and hence we will see the two ticks, double ticks in here. And now we have to pass, instead of isSeen false, we will do isSeen like that, and the same for the other message. We will copy that and we'll paste it for the isSeen, and in the message layout it's already configured down here. If the isSeen was true, we will display done all, otherwise only done, and if isSeen was true, the color will be blue, otherwise the gray color. So the isSeen is only that functionality, adding one specific feature, and based on the condition in the list view, you have to update the isSeen like that. And for having the online and offline status, we have to do some workaround in the home page. We have to track the life cycle of our application, and based on that we have to update for each of the user, for the single user, the is online status to true and false. So based on that, we will get the recipient user data in the stream in here, and will display if the user is online or offline. So here what we have to do, we are already doing with single ticker provider mixin for having the vsync in here. Now we are going to add one more mixin with our home page stat. So that mixin would be widgets binding observer, which provide us the lifecycle change method in the stat, which would be same override method as the init stat and the dispose. So we are gonna do add this method did change app lifecycle stat, which is having an parameter of stat, and based on the stat we are switching. If it was resumed, we will update the user status to online true on the UID, otherwise to false when it was passed. So the pass stat is basically when we do it like this in our IO simulator and leave it. So this is the pass stat of our application, and when we click it back, now this is the resume stat of the application. So on that stats, for example, when I close it like that, so this is also the pass stat, and I can open it back. So this is now resume stat of the application. So based on that, we are updating the online and offline status of our user, and like that this is going to work. And in the init stat, we're going to add the observer of our home page stat, and then in the dispose we have to remove the observer from the widgets binding. So after this has been done, this will correctly update the stat of the specific user to is online true and is online to false. Now what we have to do in the single chat page, we have to get the user on the recipient UID in the stream in that text, and then we will display the is online or offline like that, so that both of the user will see each other when we do something like that, or close the app, so they will see their online and offline status live, since we will be loading it in the stream. So what we're gonna do with this simple text widget is wrap it with the get single user qubit, and if this get single user qubit stat was loaded, we will get the stat of the single user. If the is online was true, we will display simple text with online, otherwise we will simply display a container, means the user is not online. And now we have to call the single user also in the init stat to get that single user on the recipient UID. So this line would be enough for retrieving the single user on the recipient UID, and then this block will be built accordingly and we will get the online and offline status of the users. Now we need one more device to test the seen messages and also the online and offline status of the users. So now we will have to start this application for the iOS, and then we will go for device manager and run this pixel device also, so that we can test directly in here. So once the Pixel 3a API 34 runs, we have to select one more device in here so that we can run our application on 2 devices at a time. Here we will select that and we'll run like that. So here we will get 2, and now we have the console of iPhone in here and the console of the Pixel 3a API 34 in here. So when this run completes, we will go for testing the seen messages and also the online and offline status of the users. So when the application runs successfully on the Pixel 3a API, so we have same user in both devices, so this time we have to log out from this device. Here we have the John, and here we also have the John. So we have to log out from here and log in with other user and go for agree and continue. And here I have to put the number again, so the number will be 301414141 and 2, and go for the next. Put the OTP in here from 1 to 6 and go for the next, and his name will be this, my name. Go for the next, and we are signed in here. So now on both devices we have 2 users. So now when I enter to his conversation and go down here, and when he comes in, he will find the messages has been seen by the other user, and you can see the messages also got seen when he comes in. And now when we see last message of him, so you will see this is also seen. So the seen messages is working now, and for having the online and offline status testing, we have to deal with it. For example, for the iPhone 15, let me focus on this, and when I go to the pause stat, like I do it like that, and here the online status must be gone, and yes, it's gone now. In here it will be updated to false, and when I click it back, it will be okay. Now it's online like that. It's also working. So in that case, if I go to the pause stat, it will become like this, and the online must disappear from here, and yes, it does. And when I click it back, so it must appear again. Okay, it got it like this. So this is how the online and offline status is going to work. We have to track the life cycle of the application, and for sending the messages, for example, both are on the same conversation. If I send message in here, hi, and it's sent, and he's seen the message, you can see it got the blue ticks, which means that it's seen by the recipient user. and both are online like that. And here, that was it for the chat feature. And I'm gonna also give you a task, so you have to delete this chat conversation. When we hold it like on long press, you have to show the dialog box, and when the delete button is clicked, you have to delete this conversation from here. And we already have written the method for this in the remote source implementation, so you have to do simply invoke it as we have invoked for the delete message. So the same will goes for the delete chat. So this is going to be the task for you to complete. And with this done, the week 4 is completed, and the next features like status call will be within the week 5. So very congratulations to you, and I would love to see your feedback about the week 4 on what you have learned up until now in this week 4. So that's it for this video. If you found this video helpful, thumbs up a like and subscribe for daily updates. Also, drop down all of your confusions in the comment section or directly DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn. That's it. See you in the next one.